Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy Podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started.
Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy Podcast. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Ani.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
And you?
I'm doing really well. I'm really looking forward to this episode. We're on episode 84 today, and we're talking about debunking the myth of the negativity bias. We've been talking about this a lot in our kitchen and between sessions and stuff, and I'm really excited to do the podcast about this today.
Yeah, and with our clients too, and in places. And we did a podcast a few weeks ago now on negative thinking, remember?
Right. Yeah.
And that kind of spurred something. It kind of got me thinking more about negative thinking and negativity bias and what it means. And so, you know, if you haven't listened to that podcast, it's not like you have to listen to that one before this one.
No,
but
it's a
they're
good
both
one.
good.
Yeah, we got a lot of positive feedback from the community about that one. Tongue in cheek. I mean, part of what was going on with that one was this idea of talking about negativity and positivity and how it's not really actually a part of the vernacular here at the Somatic Coaching Academy. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to this follow-up. I know it's a big problem for a lot of people. Negative thinking is a really big deal, and I'm really sure that we can make a positive impact.
It's hard to not do that, right?
To not do that. We can make a fulfilling impact in
empowering
people's
impact, an empowering impact.
Yes.
So the whole idea of like negative thinking and how ever present it seems to be. Well, I was leading a workshop recently for a group of high level women CEO leaders, and part of the question was, hey, who here experiences negative thinking? And everybody's hands went up, and we just got some examples in the chat going, and they were very similar to one another. So it's like there's themes around how we tend to think, quote unquote, negatively. So I was thinking about this idea of negative thinking, and then that leads into an exploration of negativity bias. And if you look in the research and in books and in social media and contemporary social media, right? There's a lot of talk about negativity bias.
There's a lot.
I've actually taught on negativity bias and I started to get kind of tired of hearing myself talk about it the way I was talking about it. And I thought, I'm missing something here. Like there's not something complete about this. There's something else hiding under here. And so I started to do a little more research on it. And even in the research, it's really interesting when you look in the research. So one of the things I found as researching this is that even children as early as 3 months old, and this is what the research does, they pay attention to more negative input than positive input. So even as they're doing that, I'm asking myself of the research, well, how are you considering it to be negative? Like, what makes it a negative input?
Right.
And I can understand kind of what they're saying when they say that, but they actually use the word negative.
Yeah.
Right. That they actually pay attention to negative stimuli more readily than positive stimuli, even as early as 3 months old. So it lets us know that there's something hardwired in humans, probably all mammals at least, that have us attend to something that's quote unquote negative more easily than something that's quote unquote positive. Right? We're actually kind of wired that way.
Right.
Sort of thing.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So we also know that when humans are in MRIs and we're looking at functional brain activity. And of course, they put people in MRIs, and then researchers offer them, here we go again, negative stimuli.
They're actually saying that in the research?
Yes. Or positive stimuli,
really
sort of thing, right? So the researchers are using that.
Really interesting.
When people are offered negative stimuli, that there's more activity, more electrical activity in the brain and blood flow changes in the brain, in the prefrontal cortex, but also the amygdala and the hippocampus. So just as a quick reminder, the hippocampus is the part of our brain that has a lot to do with functional memory and time sequencing. The amygdala is kind of what Bessel van der Kolk calls the smoke detector of the brain, or kind of like a threat detector in the brain. And the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain where we start to kind of make meaning of things. We start to put together like, yeah, what does this mean for me? What does the stimuli actually mean? We start to organize kind of that around it. So there's actually there's more activity in those three parts of the brain when we have negative stimuli versus what researchers would consider positive stimuli.
I can tell you what a lot of people make it mean,
What do they make it?
that they're negative people.
That they're negative people, right? Mm-hmm.
That's where we go with some of this stuff. Part of the reason, when you and I have we're talking about something, and it could be whatever, and one of us feels kind of shut down by the other one,
Yeah.
and then we don't feel like talking to each other about it anymore. The information on negativity bias to me feels like that kind of conversation where I might be like, I feel like this and I think about things like that and blah, blah, blah. And then I read the thing about negativity bias and it just feels like a shutdown to me. Well, you're negative. So that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is you've got negativity bias, so that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I friggin' hate that.
Yeah.
It's like when I'm having a conversation with you and I feel shut down.
Yeah.
So then you're like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? I've got negativity bias. Well, where does the brain go? Really slippery slope, easy from I have negativity bias in me to I'm negative.
Well, because I think just because of that language,
Exactly.
right? Just because of the word. Yeah, the word itself. Like you said, if I have negativity bias, I'm thinking negative thoughts, it must mean I'm a negative person.
And so then
I struggle with negativity and I don't want to be a negative person. I want to be a positive person.
Going to be if I've got negativity bias. And then we're trying to battle this imaginary thing, by the way, that's impossible to beat.
Yeah.
It's like, how am I ever going to beat it? And then, I'd say to my clients, do you know anybody who doesn't have negativity bias? And they'd say, no. Well, how are you ever going to how are you going to be the one person in the world? I don't know. I'm never going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So we really get trapped.
We
really
are
get trapped.
By this conversation.
Yeah. And so this actually leads into some more research, by the way, that when we have, again, negative, quote unquote, negative experiences, that those experiences actually encode more deeply and more clearly in the hippocampus. We actually remember more clearly negative experiences than we do positive experiences. That has to do with adrenaline. When we're having a negative experience and adrenaline is present, that actually helps with memory encoding. So something that's negative, and that might make sense because I don't want to do that again. I don't want that to happen again. I don't want to be in that situation again. So I'm going to remember it more clearly so I don't put myself in that situation again.
So could one of the things that happens from here be that I'm going to have more like, I don't know about you, but I have repetitive thoughts and they're not always negative. They're just like repetitive. Like I'm thinking maybe about what I'm going to do that day, but also I can get stuck on something. So you get stuck on a more negative memory. You can also perceive and slant past memories as more negative, even though like everything that happens is neutral, but I'm going to remember more about the negative stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And here's actually some interesting data too, some social science data on what you're talking about, is that we actually believe believe this or not, we actually will believe things that are negative and false more readily than things that are positive and true.
Okay, say it again.
As humans,
Yep.
we will more readily believe
Yep.
and take action on
Yep.
and decisions on
Things
that are negative and false. In other words, they're negatively oriented, right? In other words, someone's going to take something from you, someone's going to hurt you, someone's going to do something to you, rob you something,
right?
Because they are a certain color, size,
whatever,
person, gender, whatever it is, right? So that's negative and false.
Yep.
We believe that more readily. And take actions on it, make decisions on it more readily than if something was positive and true. They're here to help you. They're here to help you. They're here to take care of you. They're here to support you. You're like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
So
That's
So
really
this is social
fascinating.
science research.
I'm remembering I was in the grocery store one day, I don't know, a few months ago, and I hang my reusable bags on the little cart thingamajig in the front. There's like a little hook for your
Yeah.
bags. And I hang it on there, and I always put my wallet in the bag thing because it's right there in front of me. So I've got my wallet in the bags, and I go about my shopping. Well, I got to the the checkout, right? And I went and I looked for the bags that were hanging on the little hook thingy, and they weren't there. The bags weren't there. And where did my head go immediately? Somebody stole
Somebody
my bags.
stole it. Yeah.
Somebody stole my bags. And to follow that thought, what was going on was, when did I leave my cart? Was it because I was looking for the chips? Was I trying to get the raspberries? When did I leave my cart? Because I was trying to track for when somebody stole it from me.
Yeah.
I just had taken them off and put them in the main part of the cart, and I forgot, right?
Yeah.
But so listening to you think about
Yeah.
that, like I just recently kind of did that and went to that extreme. I don't remember if it was you and I talking about this or if I read this somewhere else recently, but to your point, this idea of when somebody loses their wallet, the kind of like my bags, the first thought is that somebody stole
hmm
it. But the reality is that most of the time, someone actually will find the wallet and give it back to the person rather than the wallet will be stolen. Most of the time, when somebody loses their wallet, a person will give it back, which is that positivity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's more likely to happen, but we don't
But we're not conditioned that way.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, this is all really, so some of this is hardwired, right? Some of it is actually how we're taught about what's hardwired
Yes.
kind of thing. So we want to make sure we're including that idea also in there. So something else is really interesting too, is that, hey, Ani, have you ever like stood on a bridge or something like that? Have you ever stood on a bridge and thought to yourself, I wonder what it would be like to jump?
I'm so glad I'm not the only one. Yes.
You know, and so a lot of people, I mean, this happens to me, happens to a lot of people I've talked to, um, that we think those kinds of things.
Yeah.
What would it be like if I jumped off the bridge?
Yeah.
Or we're driving our car, what would it be
Yes.
like if I just turn my hand off the, and we think that we're insane. We think that we're crazy. We think that we're bad. Actually, you know what? The frontal lobe is designed to do that.
Oh,
The
really?
frontal lobe is designed to run many scenarios
Oh,
to help us figure out what the best thing to do is.
that's
And that's one of the scenarios.
that's funny. Our
Our brain is actually designed to do that. Our brain is designed to run worst case scenarios
uh,
so that we can actually choose what
what to do.
what's in our best interest.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Our youngest is learning how to drive, and he recently had a conversation with me, like revealing this vulnerability of sometimes I just wonder what it would be like to run off the road or run over this person. And,
Yeah.
I was relating to him that I have those thoughts too. And isn't it funny and
Yeah.
whatever?
Everybody does
Right.
because our brain is actually runs those scenarios like immediately.
That's
But
funny.
isn't it interesting that we attend more readily to the negative, to the most negative scenarios?
Well, I mean,
Because our brain's running multiple scenarios,
sure.
but we're paying attention to and remembering the ones that are the most quote unquote negative.
Yeah, when we were having that conversation about that crazy idea, like we think we're insane, but that's okay. Let me finish my thought about running off the road. The conclusion we were coming to was we start to identify with I'm a crazy person
Mhm.
because I'm having those thoughts,
Exactly. Right.
right? So all of a sudden it becomes an identity problem again.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So just know like that happens, that happens naturally. That's a normal thing that happens. The problem is then how do we relate to that? How we start thinking about ourselves, you know, and certainly we do want to say if you do have those thoughts and you feel really compelled to take action with those things, of course, get support, find support. That's really important to
Yep.
do as well, because those are just scenarios that our brains are running. They're not directives. They're not directives from our brains. They're scenarios that our brains are running so that we can basically create the direction that we want to go, that's the healthiest for us. So maybe we need to learn how to pay attention to more of the scenarios that our brain is offering us rather than just hyper attending to the ones that we consider the most negative sort
Well,
of thing,
I think this
right?
conversation is definitely going to help people with that.
Yeah. So far, Ani, we've talked about the research around negativity bias, and it starts at 3 months old, and it affects, it includes parts of the brain, core parts of the brain, the frontal lobe, the amygdala, hippocampus. We've talked about how negativity bias creates more clear memory structure, how it helps run scenarios. Like these are all natural processes. And so when I was doing that research, it occurred to me these are all natural processes. So why are we calling them negative?
Because negative is a judgment call. Nothing is inherently positive or negative.
Yeah,
It's a judgment call.
right.
Yeah.
So why did we ever choose to call them negative?
I think probably because, science evolves. And in the past, that was the thing that made sense to do.
Hmm.
I think it's now outdated. I
Yeah,
don't think it's helping us anymore.
I agree. I agree. It's completely outdated. It's not helping us. It's keeping us stuck somewhere.
Correct.
So I would like to formally introduce, formally invite a change to the whole idea and concept of negativity bias, because I don't believe that naturally we are negativity biased. I think we are naturally protectivity biased.
I'm with you.
I think it's not negativity bias. I think it's protectivity bias. I think if you look back at all the research that people were calling negative, let's think about the negative stimuli that activates the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, and the hippocampus. Well, the amygdala is a threat detector. It's not a negative positive detector.
Right.
It's a threat detector. The reason the amygdala goes off is because we feel threatened. So essentially, it's a self-protection mechanism, alerting us that there's a threat and we need to protect ourselves from it. So even the scenario of the frontal lobe running all the scenarios of the bridge and the car and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
it's running those scenarios so that we can protect ourselves from those things happening.
And that makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
That our bodies, our nervous system is so brilliant. It's so brilliantly organized. We
Yeah.
just got to keep getting out of our own way around it.
Yeah, and the core of it is around threat and protection. So, and adrenaline, and hyper activating hippocampus structures that creates stronger memories when we have adrenaline. Well, adrenaline is a threat hormone when we feel threatened. So, again, it goes back to protectivity. So, what my inclination is here is, and I've been doing this with some clients, and I did this in a group recently where I offered the idea and said, hey, what if we realized that we weren't negativity biased, we were protectivity biased, and every one of your negative thoughts every one of your thoughts that you're calling negative, let's just say that every one of the thoughts that you're calling negative is actually trying to protect you from something.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the most powerful questions that I ask in coaching sessions because, from a somatic standpoint, our bodies are working perfectly. When we can assume that they're working perfectly and ask then again about what you're trying to protect with your feelings, with how you're thinking, people will have a light bulb go off behind
Yeah.
their eyes, and for the first time they'll realize that they're not broken, something's not wrong with them, and they've had this misconception about who they are based on perfectly normal
Yeah,
functions.
exactly. Exactly. So it's about asking that deeper question of when someone says, I'm having these negative thoughts, and pause and say, well, I'm just curious. What are those thoughts protecting? What are they protecting? Let's just reframe that, because that's really what's going on. I think it's really fascinating when I look at people in the world, Ani, and you realize our bodies, like you said, our bodies are perfect. Our bodies are already know what to do. And like the animal that's shaking when they've been in a trauma situation, right? And how humans will do the same thing, like will naturally shake. There's actually parts of our body that will rub and naturally touch even without realizing it, that they're actually acupressure points on the body that will reduce worry or anxiety on the body when people touch those things without realizing it. And then when you realize, oh my God, that pressure point actually does that. Well, yeah. Well, if you watch people, they do that automatically when they feel worried, when they feel anxious, when they feel irritable, when they feel whatever. And our bodies have all this inherent wisdom in it. And really one of the big challenges or problems are that we judge ourselves for those things. And for some random, not even random, I'm saying some, I don't think it's random. I think it's designed poorly. Some poorly designed social moray or social construct actually inhibits our natural rebalancing mechanisms with our bodies. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. We're naturally protectivity biased. That's what we naturally are. But for some reason, somewhere in the research, somewhere in the literature, it was more appropriate at the time to call it negative.
I'll tell you what it is. It's that body mind split, man. Like
Back
this,
to the split, huh?
it's back to the split. We took the spirit out of anything that has to do with body mind stuff. And all of a sudden we're like, well, what's going on with the body or what's going on with the mind? And it's not an integrated kind of philosophy because literally the reason why we were able to think about it is because we do come from a place of body, mind, spirit integration. And we know very well that negativity and positivity is a judgment call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's a more spiritually based idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to entertain spirit, then you're going to have the split. Then you're going to have problems. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm thinking about now?
What?
I'm realizing I need to go back through all of our training materials.
Oh.
And like find everywhere where it says negativity bias and change it to productivity bias. And as I'm thinking about doing that, I'm like thinking to myself, I don't know if I have the energy to do that. I don't think right. So then I'm like, well, what am I protecting myself from? It's instead of getting on myself for it, like, oh, Brian, you just are lazy. You don't have the energy. You shouldn't do it. Blah.
Probably protecting yourself from me.
No, I'm like, what am I just protecting myself from? So it's like happening. It's like happening all the time.
Well, I think it's funny. I also think you just bring up a good point. Like with like, why are we even calling it that with the research? It's because that's what we do. It's habit. It's just old habit. Nobody had the epiphany yet. I mean, you did, thank God, finally, to finally do something different. But we went through this, I think it was 2 years ago or so, when we recognized that most of the time at the Somatic Coaching Academy, when we're working with sensations, most of the time we were using the words desired and undesired. Every once in a while, one of us, including one of us, would say negative or positive
Correct,
sensation.
yeah.
Do you remember?
Yep.
Like, I remember that because I'm the one who come through all of the manuals to find negative sensation and change it to desired and undesired. It was quite a task and undertaking, but to make sure that we weren't doing that anymore because it was a judgment call. We wanted to make sure we didn't do that anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah. And now I know if we have any students listening right now,
Yeah.
you're looking through your manuals and going, "Wait, it's still there.
Come on.
Let us
Let us know.
let us know.
We'll fix
Because
it.
they're in lots of places." And so
Well, it's habit,
we're
right?
really trying to go back and update like all the stuff when we come to a new awareness because for us, it's really important that we are exemplifying or demonstrating what we're learning and bringing that forward in the world. So we're constantly revising things based on what we learn and what we change as much as we possibly can. So I know that can be for our students who are like, I just printed it out. Didn't you change it? But yeah, but things change. So it's always available for you. You know where it is. It's in the vault. Go find the updated copy.
And the science changes. The science is definitely going to change as soon as they get wind of this.
Of this, huh?
Well, yeah, and then it's going to take 10 years to get in the textbooks. Like we know how this works. It takes time for things to change. So you heard it here first, and now you can go ahead and make sure that when you hear this idea of negativity bias out there, you have a more physiologically correct way to think about it, more empowering way to think about it. That and you've got to like challenge that belief you hear out there and go, actually, that's not what I believe. I believe it's a productivity bias, and Off you go.
Yeah.
Tell
So
your friends.
take it out in the world, use it with yourself, use it with your clients, use it with your friends, use it with your cats and dogs, and let us know what you think. Test this and then let us know. Comment, chat, call, carrier pigeon, whatever you need, let us know. Stay in communication. We want to know how this is meeting, this idea and this change, this shift is happening in the world. So important for us to be doing this stuff together. So thanks so much for joining us again this week on the podcast. Look forward to seeing you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.